Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what a delight to have back with us today. I have come to really enjoy this guest and his book. I have found it to be fascinating. Dr. Gerard Lameiro is back with us. He's a philosopher, an economist, an engineer. He's authored several books, and his latest one, I think, is a must-read. It's entitled Great News for America. And I can't say enough. I think you ought to get a copy of this. All the stuff that's going on during this political cycle can leave you kind of cynical, and you got to be careful about that. I think cynicism is kind of the cancer of our day. So you may want to get a copy of this book and take a look at it. It is really well researched. So Dr. Lameiro, good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
Oh, it's great to be with you. Love being on your network.
Well, thank you. I so enjoyed our first visit. I think you're going to be a regular on this network. I started reading your book. Now, I'm kind of a generational science research nut, and I've been kind of caught up in the fourth, the third turnings. I don't know if you've read any of that kind of research, but your research going back to all of the presidential election cycles is absolutely fascinating. And I don't know what caused you to do this, but what made you go back all the way?
Well, you know, I sensed from the numbers, and I wrote the book, by the way, in 2015, and it came out the beginning of January 2016, so the beginning of January this year. Last year, I sensed that something unusual was going to happen. I saw signs in the data and that things were just going to be different. So I decided to go back and look at all the elections back to 1789 and just figure out, you know, how do elections usually go. I'm talking about presidential elections. And I went through and I found this pattern that I didn't know existed. And so I decided, well, I've got to write this as a book to let people know about history and how it repeats itself in very similar ways, but updates itself for the times. And so that's why I wrote the book. And I discovered a pattern in presidential elections that I wrote about in this book that I don't think anyone has ever identified before. And I make 10 stunning, surprising predictions that will come true before, during, and after this presidential election. And so far, they're all coming true.
Well, your first prediction was the turnout during the primary cycle, right?
Well, the first prediction is that this will be a historic presidential election. And by historic, I have a special meaning. I didn't say historical, I said historic. And by that, I mean that there'll be a record voter turnout. In other words, there are going to be millions of more people voting this time around than normally vote in a presidential election. And that only happens very rarely. But this is going to be one of those times. And so far, the primaries and caucuses have shown that to be true. We have record turnout. In this case, Donald Trump benefited. An interesting point I might make is he thinks that he's the reason for it. I predicted this before it happened to him because I really think it is a American phenomena. It is not a Trump phenomena. He benefited from the mood of America.
All right, I agree with you. I think that the mood of America was anti-politician, anti-establishment, you know. Yeah. Well, it is staggering that on the conservative side, the turnout was significant, and on the liberal side, it was actually down.
That's correct. Well, that also goes to one of my predictions that this would be a year in which there would be a conservative person elected president. And while Trump is not an ideological conservative in the sense of, say, Ted Cruz, he said enough conservative things to where he got 44% of the primary and caucus vote to support him. That also says 56% didn't. But still, what it says is the American people wanted things like global terrorism to be addressed. They wanted the border problems resolved on our southern border, and on down the list of big issues that face America.
All right, before we get into a couple of issues, one of the cycles that you saw, or the main course of the cycle you saw, was going from constitutional to non-constitutional. or anti-constitutional. And now we have had 8 years of what it looks like to be anti-constitutional. And you're saying the swing back to a conservative era is now upon us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What we've seen in the last number of years, actually since 1980, which is ironic because we elected a conservative in 1980, but we didn't get the House and the Senate conservative as well. And so what we found was a real anti-constitutional thing. That's where, like, Obama says, you know, I have my pen and my cell phone, or whatever, however he put it, and that's all he needs. Well, that's not true. You need a Congress to pass laws. He's not three branches of government. He's only one branch of government. But yet we have this thing where, laws are flaunted, law and order is not always followed. And I have lots of examples in the book of where some lawlessness exists in this particular era that I call the anti-constitutional era, which I think is abruptly going to come to an end.
You expect turnover in the House and the Senate, but still, at the end of the day, remain on the conservative side?
Yes. And what I think will happen, and by the way, changes in parties, changes in constitutional errors, and I identified 7 different constitutional errors, and I don't know any other author that's ever done that. But what happens is it happens gradually. For example, between 1828 and 1832, the Whig Party more or less disappeared. But it just wasn't there one day and the next day it was gone. These things happen gradually. One of the things I noted in an article I wrote about 2 weeks ago was the fact that right before and during the Republican National Convention, you heard people calling it the Conservative Party. Well, there was no official name change. And some people said it's the new Trump Party. And some people said, no, it's the Trump Party. And the very fact that people are looking around for a new name really fits one of my predictions, which was the end of the Republican Party as we know it. And for Democrats, lest you be left out, I also predicted the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. And I go into detail about what's changing, why it's changing, and what should people look for. And so I think we are evolving into a conservative party. My guess is the next presidential candidate on what was called the old Republican Party will be a conservative ideologically. Right now, we appeared to have selected a populist conservative in that, but that troubles some people because of the things he said.
So do you think the right will go more right and the left more left?
Yes, absolutely. And what that's also going to do, and I talk about, is it's basically going to make the old Democratic Party, which I say the new name is going to be the Progressive Socialist or Socialist Party. It's going to make it far left, and it's also going to push it into minority status for about a generation or two. And so I expect the dominant party will be whatever the new Republican Party is called. It is not the same. When you have John Kasich, Jeb Bush, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, McCain, on and on and on, not even showing up at their own convention, you know it's a different party. Because those are like the elder statesmen of the party not showing up at their own convention. It is a new party. The question is, when will the name change and what will the new name be?
All right, one other question before we take a break and get into the tax differences or the tax plan differences between the two parties. Yesterday, conservative icon Phyllis Schlafly called for the getting rid of Paul Ryan. Is this part of your prediction?
Well, I didn't get that granular on predictions to say this person would go or not. There's issues because of his ties to the establishment and to the old Republican Party. Phyllis makes a good point. I've talked with Phyllis. She is a smart lady with an incredible track record of promoting conservative principles. She makes a good point. Whether she's right or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the bottom line, the macro level trend is toward conservative principles and a reestablishment of our founding principles.
All right. Let me take a break here, Dr. Lameiro, because yesterday Hillary Clinton said something. I can't help but think it was a gaffe, but not too many people picked up on it. She said, "We have to raise taxes on the middle class." I'm not sure what she meant by that, but I'd like to get your take on the Clinton tax plan and the Trump tax plan. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Check out this book. Go to Amazon and get it. Great News for America. It is a great resource. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back, and what a delight to have back with us today Dr. Gerard Lameiro. He is a philosopher, an economist, an engineer, and the author of several books. The latest one is entitled Great News for America. Now, you can get this book at Amazon.com. Look for his other books, Renewing America and Its Heritage of Freedom, another must-read, America's Economic War, and Choosing the Good Life. And I think you'll find all of these to be very, very resourceful. All right, let's talk about tax plan of the left and the tax plan of the right, in particular, Clinton's tax plan, Hillary Clinton's tax plan. Can you give us a little summary of that?
Oh, absolutely. In 2 words, you can summarize it in 2 words, but I'll tell you more than that even. It's raise taxes. That is the program. Clinton's tax plan, the official tax plan, is for roughly a total of $1 trillion or more over a 10-year period. And there are additional taxes that are not currently part of the plan, which she has either endorsed or said that she is open to. Let me give you some examples. Income taxes, personal income taxes, she plans to raise $350 billion. Business taxes, they're already high and causing us to lose jobs. She wants to raise it another $275 billion. Then she has what are called, or they call in the Clinton campaign, fairness tax changes. This is $400 billion of additional taxes. They're going to have a fair share surcharge, which nobody knows exactly what that is. I don't know what it means, other than somebody must not, in their opinion, be paying enough, their fair share. So they're going to raise it. They're also going to tax carried interest. And that, I could explain that. That's a little economics term or financial term, if you'd like me to explain it later. Some people don't like to put a lot of detail into the minutia, but I could explain it. And then also death taxes. We're definitely going to raise the death taxes in the Clinton tax plan. But that's not all. There's something new, a tax on stock trades. Have every stock traded for your 401k, your IRA. There's going to be a cost, and guess what? That means the balance in your accounts will go down according to whatever taxes are taken out, for one thing. And then for business, there's going to be a new exit tax, where if they earn money overseas, they're going to get taxed on that, as well as possibly paying taxes in other countries, as well as all the taxes they pay back here in the U.S. Oh, I should mention, too, for those who care about the Second Amendment, she wants to add a 25% national gun tax to discourage gun sales. She wants to tax sodas at a high rate, but we don't know exactly how high she means. And she's open to a carbon tax. Now, if that's not enough taxes, maybe they'll think of more before the election's over.
By the way, Dr. Lameiro, you may want to investigate Measure 97 in the state of Oregon. It's on the ballot this fall. It'll be the largest backdoor sales tax in the history of the state, 2.5% on gross sales for corporations. And I've been told per capita the largest tax increase in the United States. You may want to investigate that. Of course, we're fighting it like crazy to make sure it's defeated. But these liberals have an addiction, and it's called money. And so you may want to just kind of keep your eye open for that, because it's coming at us pretty strong. All right, compare that to Trump's plan. What's his plan?
Well, you can use two words to cut his plan. Hillary's plan is raise taxes. Trump's plan, fortunately, is cut taxes. And he wants to establish 4 income tax brackets for personal income. Those brackets are at 0, 10, 20, and 25%. Currently, our highest tax rate is 39%. And for married couples who earn up to $50,000 of income, they will fall into the Trump zero tax bracket. So they will pay nothing on income up to $50,000. Trump would also cut capital gains tax, dividends tax. Both of those will tend to spur on new investment in businesses. He'd also cut our high corporate tax rates, which are either the highest or the second highest in the world. And have really helped to damage our economy quite a bit. Trump would also get rid of the death tax, the alternative minimum tax, the AMT, and also he would repeal the marriage penalty in the tax code. So basically, one other thing, in terms of carried interest, he's not as drastic as Hillary. Hillary would tax carried interest on both private equity and hedge funds. Trump would only do it on hedge funds. And again, if you want to go into that in detail, I could explain why.
Okay, let me ask you this before we do. He's made some pretty interesting statements as it relates to trade. How would that impact our economy?
Well, it's hard to know things like TPP because the agreement is secret. A number of these agreements that have been negotiated by the Obama administration apparently would have been quite controversial because they put them in the basement of the Capitol. No one was allowed to go down there except congressmen. They couldn't take notes. They couldn't take notes out of the room. They couldn't take a copy machine and take a few copies of pages. And a lot of the documents have a 5 or 10-year secrecy attached to them. So it's hard for me to speculate on the impact of the economy of either pursuing the current different trade agreements or how Trump might renegotiate them because we don't even know how he will renegotiate them. In economics, we know that free trade is normally a good thing because it maximizes the use of scarce resources. But that is if it is free trade, free. And as Trump would say, he is for free trade, but he's not for trade deals that give away the kitchen sink, so to speak, and give away everything else for whatever quid pro quo they think they're getting.
They both fight for the middle class. Hillary made a mistake, I think, maybe she meant it, that she wanted to raise the taxes on the middle class yesterday. She made that statement. Who would best serve the middle class?
Well, I think if you're talking about the economy for the middle class, and actually the economy for everyone, because the poor are hurt badly in a bad economy, the rich are hurt. The rich can usually survive most things. The middle class and the poor are the ones who are affected most. I think there's no question in my mind, looking at both of these plans, side by side, and having studied economic growth for years and years and years and years, the Trump tax plan would boost the economy. I think Hillary's plan would put us into another recession.
All right. We just don't hear it, certainly not from the left. You hear a little bit from Donald Trump, the seriousness of our $19+ trillion debt. Can we pay that down?
We can if we have growth. Okay, I think the plan that Trump is proposing will average about 4% growth per year. That will generate enormous numbers of new businesses, new jobs, new revenues. By the way, when the economy does good, one of the beneficiaries is the federal government because they collect so many taxes, even at the current rates. And so, yes, we can grow ourselves out of debt. We have to watch, though, that we start growing. Right now, we're lackluster growth. We had in second quarter GDP this year, 1.2% growth. We have averaged 2.1% since the recession was over in June 2009. And this is abysmal compared to a normal normal growth after a recession. We have never started growing normally, and it's because of things like Obamacare, which created a great strain on the economy, and a lot of other policies, including, I think, some poor policies of the Federal Reserve. Qualitative easing and ZIRP. I think trying to allocate credit the way it's been allocated, where the government gets most, small business doesn't get much. I think our Federal Reserve needs to be changed too, and a new president will have the possibility of appointing different people as governors of the Federal Reserve. And even though the Supreme Court is important, the Federal Reserve is very important too.
Some have suggested let's take advantage of these low interest rates and refinance the debt. What do you think?
I'm not quite sure how you mean that. Are you talking about the national debt?
Yeah. Can they do it?
Well, that gets kind of complicated in a hurry. But the answer is, you've got to have a long-term plan, because at some point you can't refinance, and some of the debt now is at low interest rates, and it may be refinanced at a higher rate. So it's not quite so simple as your question might hope to imply.
Well, I'm playing off some articles that I've read that while the interest rates are down, but on the other hand, that leans over to the side, can we hold off inflation, or is it inevitable?
We don't know, because the Federal Reserve has done non-standard management of the economy. They have experimented with something called qualitative easing, which we think eventually will have to be unwound. And when it is unwound, it may cause significant inflation. We don't exactly know. They also are playing around now with ZIRP, which is zero interest rate plan, ZIRP, Z-I-R-P, and that's causing a lot of problems, including senior citizens and getting some money out of their savings accounts and things, hurting them. And in some countries now, they're going to negative interest rates, where you have to pay out of your principal the bank to just hold your money in an account. And that's happening too. And that's not good. So we have a lot of problems with how our monetary policy has been formulated, largely along Keynesian lines. And we know Keynesian economics doesn't work very well. And I think that economists who are honest with themselves have to repudiate Keynesian principles.
Okay. So what I'm getting from you, and as I'm now just beginning to read through your book, I'm kind of stuck in a couple of chapters because I've gone through them twice. The bottom line here is the mood of the country is to get back to a constitutional standard and all of that and what it represents. So whether it's Trump or somebody else, the mood of the country is to the right. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Americans always have wanted, for 240 years, a government that's characterized by morality and guarantees of their freedom. And we have, right now, American people feel like the government has turned corrupt. When Hillary was not indicted after the FBI director James Comey, said that she, exhibited reckless carelessness with national security secrets, and she was not indicted. It's like who you know gets you off the hook. That was one more nail in the coffin of corruption, thinking that this country is getting more and more corrupt, where if you're a big shot and you have the right connections, you don't have to follow the law. That's a banana republic. That's not the American tradition. No man or woman is above the law. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lameiro, you are an inspiration. I want to say thank you and look forward to many more times together. Let me encourage our viewers. This book is fascinating. I'm just into several chapters, and I'm kind of stuck on his research of past presidential election cycles. But as you read all the way through this, he's basically saying we're going to be okay. Not that it's going to be without bumps, but you're going to see new parties, both on the left and the right. Get the book. It's entitled Great News for America. You can go to Amazon.com and check it out there. Thank you, my friend. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely. And by the way, my previous book, Renewing America, goes into the economics in a lot of depth, if that's something that you want to delve into.
All right, they can get that as Amazon right there as well.
Sure.
And by the way, you have a website called greatnewsforamerica.com. All your books there?
They're listed there and explained. You can actually buy them from the website, but Amazon's fine.
Okay.
There's also a lot of free information you might like about the election and about some of my other writings.
All right, greatnewsforamerica.com. Thank you, sir. God bless.
God bless you.
Okay, we'll be right back.